So back when the Space World 1997 demo was released, there was actually reference, and even before that, there was actual reasons to believe that there were two baby forms of Growlithe. One was called Putty, like a petty, sort of like a small dog, and then it would evolve into Growlithe at level 13, and then Growlithe would, of course, evolve into Arcanine with a Firestone. If you can get your hands on one, of course. But what's really interesting is even in the Space World demo, you could actually buy those items. You could even catch the legendaries at some point in the wild too. It's actually pretty interesting. So, including Mew. Makes me wonder how they scrapped that concept. I guess that's when they decided to start trading from Gen 1, 2, and 3. Or Gen 1, 2, Gen 2. But, anyways, so I just think it's really interesting that if that is possible, that they really weren't kidding when they said that like every Pokemon family was supposed to have at least 3 Pokemon in it. Arcanine, obviously, we only got Growlithe and Arcanine, so like the 2 of them at least. And I don't know if Arcanine has a Mega Evolution. I don't think so. I've been playing too many custom ROM hacks people have made, so I'm trying to think, like, I forget sometimes what's finalized and what isn't. But honestly, if you ask me, I think all legendaries should have at least some kind of custom or primal form. Sorry, I forgot the name for a second. But yeah, I do believe, though, going back to the Growlithe, I believe they changed it at one point, and then they realized it ran out of cartridge space, so they gave it to like different Pokemon, probably different species. Because I wouldn't be surprised, as far as Pokemon goes, the original, you couldn't go past 255 unless you were to put it like in a separate hack of some kind and then like kind of carry it out. It could be done with coding, but like Game Freak didn't really know how to do it at the time. It is possible though, but a little bit more confusing though, if that makes sense. Okay, so basically what I think Game Freak did was that they realized that programming wasn't really going to be their strong suit, so they had a lot more ideas than they knew what to do with, but they realized with cartridge limitations, because they obviously filled up the cartridges because they loved what they were doing, so they eventually figured it out, and then when Satoru Iwata came along, they rewrote a compression algorithm for the game, and therefore they started over, sort of. That's why a lot of ideas kind of got scrapped, and maybe they decided just to change what they had, gave them more time to work on it. That's why I do feel like Lugia was in Gen 2. I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, Not to mention, even in the 1997 Space World demo, there was actually the Whirlpool Islands. So even Lugia was able to be caught at some point. Maybe it wasn't in the final version, sure, right away, but, they probably were anticipating that, yes, you could catch Lugia, which kind of confirms what I've been saying, that, yes, Lugia was just a Pokemon that they decided to make a movie about, introduce it there. And, but they had to have had the idea for as long as they had, So, it kind of makes sense when you think about it. Yeah, it's some powerful stuff, really. What else do I want to say? Okay, so as far as the Growlithe evolutions go, there are a lot of other baby form Pokemon that were cut too. I do think that that's kind of why, like, Gen 1 and Gen 2 didn't really ultimately have, like, a lot of the Pokemon that they did because, cartridge limitations, and they didn't really know what they wanted to. They didn't utilize the concept right away. Like, you couldn't breed eggs in Gen 1. Didn't happen until Gen 2. But if you actually go back and look at some of the older artworks that they have, they actually do depict that, yes, they had the concept, like, right around the same time, even before the first games came out. Like, they had the concept of Pokemon coming out of eggs, and some Pokemon that probably they would be considered a fake mon instead, that we didn't really think about. Like, some of the Pokemon, like, they were designing, like, there were, like, baby Nidorans, for example. Even, probably before they got Nidorino, Nidoqueen, Nidoking, Nidorino, Nidoking, Nidorina, Nidoqueen, we had, like, different Pokemon. They had so many different ideas, and then they probably just decided to do something special and unique with each family, and that's why we got what we did, so, That's kind of interesting. So I think they did the same thing with Growlithe because they probably figured, Growlithe was good enough, and then Arcanine was supposed to be a legendary. I mean, because if you really think about it, I mean, a lot of people love Arcanine, but like Arcanine's got a lot of lost history. First it was a legendary Pokemon, then they gave it its own like evolved form. I think Growlithe would eventually have been in the game anyways because Growlithe was part of the 191. So even if Arcanine was a legendary, kind of on the same, they basically toned it down a little bit. The legendary birds obviously could be caught more than once at this time, but like it didn't happen. So they eventually made them static counters. So like you only find one of them. Giovanni's not using flying type, so he doesn't have the legendary birds. But technically, if that was true, then yeah, Giovanni would have been the first trainer to have used legendary Pokemon. But at the same time, if Arcanine was still a legendary Pokemon, then you could say that Growlithe would have, or Arcanine could have been the first legendary Pokemon. Therefore, other trainers would have been using legendary Pokemon in Gen 1 instead of like N being like the first one that used like either Zekrom or Reshiram to use against you. You know what I mean? It's very interesting stuff, like some of the stuff that these people have found in like some of these prototype maps and whatnot that were just from an unused version of Game Freak's library. So I just think that's really cool to think about, how many different ideas they scrapped, changed, or just altogether like turned into something else, delayed it, turned it into something far greater. So, I mean, because Pokemon, see, what a lot of people get wrong about Pokemon, and I even do think about it to this day, is it's like, as a series, it's got a lot of concepts, but it's a complex one, if that, because, there's certain decisions they make to balance some things out. They didn't want some Pokemon being more powerful than others because then nobody would use this Pokemon. And it's still kind of hard because, like, because the kind of series Pokemon is, it's a very complex one. There's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of different Pokemon to begin with. And we're still growing the roster, I do feel like Game Freak has done a great job, though, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this series to begin with. I mean, granted, yeah, there are things they could have done better. I'll give it that. But I'm still happy that, again, Satoshi Tajiri, Ken Sugimori, and all the other people helped them out along the time they did. Because, again, what other series would a lot of people be playing if it wasn't for that? Probably a lot of other ones, too. I mean, there's too many games to begin with anyways, but Pokemon has inspired a lot of people. So the fact that people make their own Pokemon ROM hacks, that's actually crazy. So that's actually very interesting, if you ask me at least. So that's actually pretty cool. Oh yeah, and before I go, if anybody's watching this and you're making Pokemon ROM hacks, just a little note. Try to, if you can, if you're going to throw like other Pokemon from like other generations into the game, try to get their battle cries in there too, if you can. Like, I know hacking's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, even if you're taking an existing game and just changing variables. But, try to get like the original cries of the Pokemon and try to fit them in the games too. So that way at least those Pokemon have the original cries instead of like something like Sceptiles or Bulbasaurs or, etc. I just think that's really interesting how, a lot of GBA ROM hacks kind of do that, and they don't, maybe they might have overlooked something. But anyways, so again, subscribe if you're not already. If I find more stuff, I'll make a video about it. All right, take it easy, everyone.